name is Wangui, Dr. Wangui Gathua, and I coordinate Nisaa, African Family Services in Iowa City. The region I coordinate is Eastern Iowa, the same as you had talked about. And I have some printouts here of my presentation. And they are not written in stone because we keep changing with the times. We are a cultural specific and linguistic organization, and that's why when you see on our cover page, we have some an African side table, and we also have an African rapper, or what we call a kanga or leso in Swahili, in Kenyan Swahili, and there is a saying there in Swahili which says upekepeke mwisho utabaki peke yako. If you live alone, in the end you'll be alone. It takes a village to raise a child or to raise Wangui, and that's a very strong motto for us as we work in Nisaa. Nisaa is not an acronym. I usually find our partners spelling it in capital letters or thinking it's not an acronym. It's a word. It means woman in Arabic, in one of our languages. So Nisaa African Family Services. On our second page is an outline of a summary of what I want to talk about in the next 20 minutes. I'll talk about Nisaa, which I'm already doing, and then the communities that we serve, that's the Africans in Iowa, and the statistics, and the need for Nisaa services, the justification, and what are those services, what are the challenges, and what's the progress so far. It's a community-based organization, and it was established in 2011. In 2014, I went to Kenya after I graduated from the University of Iowa to run one of the counseling programs in the universities there, because I found after moving from Kenya to Iowa, I straddled an interesting position of the US and Kenya. So since 2014, I went to finish my dissertation. I also ran a counseling program in the country, which makes me even better to serve at the position I am serving right now, because I'm very kept up with my cultural competency on Africans who form our clientele. And we serve African survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault in all 99 Iowa counties. I run the office in Iowa City that serves Eastern Iowa. We have our main office in Des Moines that serves the rest of Iowa. And we believe that for the refugees and the immigrants in Iowa, some research was done and established cultural competency is necessary to serve this group of domestic violence, sexual assault, which also includes trafficking and stalking. Before that, the African survivors were served by Monsoon, which today serves Asians and Pacific Islanders. They did the presentation last week. And Nisaa is a 501c3. It has 501c3 status since 2015. And Nisaa is funded by the Crime Victims Assistance Division. And we have 7 multilingual mobile staff, For me, other than English, Kenyan, British, English, Iowa City, I also speak Swahili, French, and my mother's tongue, Gikuyu. So the population in Iowa, and then the other 7 advocates, they have different languages. We have Tigrinya, we have Arabic, we have Portuguese, the African languages, and then if we get a client who doesn't speak any of those or any of those, we look for a speaker who is going to aid us in working with the client. And Africa is the second largest continent with 54 countries and colonized by different European countries, which the colonization and slavery as a result of that, or some of those traumas and that history, our survivors still carry that through generations, and they bring them to us, or we find that with them when we go to wherever they're at, because more often than not, our clients, we go where they're at, other than them coming to our offices. And Africa is rich with diverse culture, and there are about 2,000 languages spoken in Africa, with an example of Kenya, that's where I'll call myself an expert. We have about 47 languages. So if you multiply that by 54, it becomes, and all the other foreign languages like French, English, Portuguese, Italian, all these, German. When we come to the Iowa African immigrant and refugee statistics, I'm sure you also found that a challenge. It's challenging. We really do not have an exact number, because those of us who are researchers, we really haven't captured the numbers, and then it's also a moving target, because we are always having a wave coming in. Right now, the newest wave in Iowa is being caused by the revolution in North Sudan. So we are having some of our clients arriving in Cedar Rapids. And some of us, in addition to the colonial traumas coming from colonialism and new colonialism, now from the civil wars, they also have, in addition to that, they bring in domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and trafficking. Right here. Usually for us, most of them bring it through Cedar Rapids, because we have one of our closest refugee centers where they arrive and they're welcome to America. So in 2010, the African immigrant and refugees were at close to 86 and 9,006, and they identified as Black. And today we have about 45,000 foreign African individuals currently living in Iowa. And most of the Africans in Iowa come through migration, and they are mainly two, some of them voluntary, but still some of them involuntary. Some of them is economic hardships and internal insecurity. But in this group, we also have those who pursue education or work in Iowa. And then there's the big group that most of us serve, which come because of civil war and the instabilities from their countries, from the continent. Then we end up with concerns where these people, before they're even our clients, they already have concerns. They are already displaced from home, they are in diaspora, and they are struggling with life in a foreign land. And there are issues of adjustment. Then their role changes. One example, and Sunday can bear me witness to this, once an African man arrives in Iowa, and one of the very culture shocks is finding him being a stay-at-home dad. Some of them, I still have some who are still frozen they are not able to adjust to that. And some of the women and girls having to find themselves having to go out and work. So those are some of the examples, and they bring with that their own trauma. And of course, they are also carrying with them historical and then current trauma and mistrust coming from slavery and colonialism, and then current caused by discrimination and racism. So by the time you're getting to our clients, they are already going through these general concerns that have been added to their lives. I have a wheel there that's showing the power and control wheel. And I'm saying for immigrant women because the majority of our clients are female. They are women, African women and girls. We also do have male clients, but they are few. And our clients find themselves in those situations, and some of them choose to stay in the sexual violent situations because of the reasons that are covered by that wheel. Because sometimes it's a woman, if she chooses to leave, she will lose. Children belong to the man. The majority of our African communities, they are patrilocal and patrilineal. So that you have to deal with that piece of our culture. Then there is also using sexual control. There is the slut shaming and embarrassment, that if you leave your marriage, you're automatically equals slut. Then there is also the stereotypes or the black woman who is a single parent. And then there's also their abusers will make sure they don't have their documentation with them, their passports and anything else, their social security, and all those important documentations. And then there's also, we intersect here with you because the use of, or the abuse of the immigration system, because the Africans in Iowa hold various statuses. So somebody may choose to stay in the marriage because they are married to the person, they have a conditional green card, and if they leave, that is impacted, their immigration status is impacted, or the abuser is the only breadwinner because his English is much better, and the person being abused may be using French, which is, yeah, and also the abuser may have more knowledge on law. And of course, there's the use of isolation. So we talked about the general concerns faced by the refugees and the immigrants, but now there are also the challenges that we face, that are faced by our survivors. I talked about the multiple layers of trauma. Then there's the system mistrust that they've already carried from Africa. And then once they come here, and our clients, I'm singling you out, and because we work with the police department, and that's one of the arms of the government that our survivors and even our population does not trust because of the history. Even if that branch, law enforcement, is supposed to be on our side, even ourselves as advocates, because of what we have faced with people in uniform. I just talked of last year how your presentation triggered me. Every time I'm going to Canada or going back to the US, the question is, and what are you coming to do in Canada this time? And any response I might make, who knows, I might be shot. So, and I remember one time I burst out and I said, when I'm coming back to the US, and ma'am, this time what are you coming to do in the US? I burst out crying, and the person in uniform was very understanding. You keep asking me this question this whole year, and you're keeping my child at the border. They have to be here in Toronto, because that way I know they're only 9 hours away from me, from Iowa. But I have to keep making this trip almost every month or 3 months, my 17-year-old. And unfortunately, I have a lot of knowledge on trafficking, knowing that she's the target. So, and I kept telling my daughter, no matter what time I call you at 3 a.m., you had better answer me, because I don't want to start driving in winter, in the thick of winter, because I'll think somebody has taken my 16-year-old. Yes, so there's a system mistrust, and there's also confidentiality. Even as they come and talk to us, or they're coming, and there's a lot of mistrust. Even our office, from our own people, and especially from our boys and our men. You will hear somebody saying, Wangui, who breaks families. They will have your husband go to jail. So there's that, and of course, safety, because you may have an abuser who chooses, well, I've lost everything and I'll beat you. There's also the misunderstanding that if they fight immediately, they're going to be deported. So they're like, well, I'm already going to be deported, I may as well. At least we haven't had anybody killed, but we've had people threatening, I may as well kill her. So there are those issues that we deal with. Then there's the victim blaming from our groups. We also have cultural discomfort in discussing domestic violence and anything sexual, taboo. It's just not there, it doesn't exist. We don't have sex, we have children, but we don't have sex, we don't talk about sex. Yeah, so the mystery. Then I talked about raw conflicts, and then there's stigmatization, and then we also have the added layer. A lot of I would also want to think all our communities are polygamous.
Yeah, almost all African countries.
Yeah, I don't know any community in Africa. Which one?
Almost all African countries accept polygamy.
Yeah, so there's that. I had one lawyer, he's Caucasian, he just threw his hands up and told me, Wangui, I am no longer able to give services to your organization because I'm talking to the person who is being abused, and then she will go. And my co-wife, and then again my co-wife, and then she's like, oh, so-and-so, no, the third one. So it just becomes very, very challenging, and it's not, polygamy is not legal in Iowa, but that doesn't mean an African wife does not have 2 or 3 wives. So that added there becomes added there. Then we have the issue of child brides. And so we also have our clientele arriving at our office having run away because their 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds have already found husbands. And a lot of the times, we might already be unlucky because already the child may already, we can't even call it a marriage being consummated when it's an 11-year-old or 12-year-old girl. So we also have to deal with that. And thanks to Nisaa, during the last legislative session, we managed to have Iowa make female genital cutting a crime. So we have that. So we are very alert, especially in the summer. If we notice girls between 8 and 16 traveling internationally, we're usually on the lookout because they know it's doing it here in Iowa, so we know they get moved across the borders to international borders to go back home. I had talked about why some survivors choose to stay in choose, and I'm using choose in quotation marks because it's not really choosing. There's also a lot of uninformation and misinformation because somebody will tell me, you know Wangui very well. Once some of our communities, one of our communities here, for example, the Congolese community, a woman will tell you that currently, I was being told, and it was supposed to be very good news I was being given, that a girl or a woman, the bride wealth is $5,000. And she was telling me, like your daughter, the 19-year-old, make sure that you get her a Congolese husband, because right now she's educated and educated. She's going to get a degree from the University of Iowa, so $12,000. And once that happens, the husband, even if you're here in Iowa City, it's very difficult to, and the community is not siding with her when she's working to leave that marriage, because the husband has bought her. It's his property, even getting out of the home to work. And even if she does, whatever dollar she gets, it's the husband to decide. So those are some of the challenges they face, which makes us face them. And these are some of the solutions that we have. We listen, we support. Okay, I'm supposed to summarize everything in the next 2 minutes. Oh, yes, and for right now, I am a counselor. I'm a counselor educator, so that helps. But the public health is working very hard to train their health staff on cultural competency on working with immigrants and refugees. Then we also work with meeting the safety needs of our survivors, connecting them with resources, and that's one of the things we are doing here, so that I know what each of you are doing, so that we know how to triage our survivors, and then also prepare them to be employment ready, and then assist them in continuing to adapt and acculturate to Iowa, and encourage them to learn English, because this is really used to keep them where in a violent situation. And that there's a continuation of Nisaa's, our services. We are mobile, so we go where they are, and we are 24/7. We have a crisis line, we advocate. And you can see, even as I talk about my survivors, their mind, we are advocate. And we do, and before you get them to them, you really have to go through me. One of our advocates had her car crashed, so sometimes it can get that serious, even safety issues. Then we have, right now, I am doing 2 monthly support groups. One around sewing, a sewing class. So as we sew, we get something out of that, and we talk about what's going on. The other one, I work with the Global Food Project, and Johnson County has given a farm, Melrose, and we get plots of land. We produce vegetables and corn and potatoes. It's cultural specific. Almost every African is a farmer from home, so we continue with that and work around that, and work on our whatever is going on. I have some information about us. I have brochures here. I brought a box of goodies, brochures, wallets, a pen. You will help yourself, and I have water bottles. And I think in 2 minutes. Yeah.
You did a great job.
Questions?
That's Thank you so much. This is another wonderful program that is going around, doing things that some of us cannot do. We'll take 2 questions.
So I assume that you work pretty closely with DVIP if a woman needs shelter.
Oh yes, when I summarized and say partners, it means DVIP, Iowa City Police Department, Rape Victim Program with the university and with the colleges, all of them, because a lot of our clients are there. They are students in Parkwood. So all in the coalition of domestic violence, sexual assault, trafficking, and stalking in Iowa. They are all our partners for shelter, for legal help, especially immigration, and what else? Safety planning, food. We work very closely with the food bank. We work with hotels, because sometimes I might be here and then I'm told somebody needs a bed right now, and there are 5 children. Yes, and because we also have I don't think it's a concern, fertility, because sometimes somebody, for example, if it was me, I would come in with my 3 daughters and my 2 sons. But so you'll have somebody, a survivor coming in with their 5, 6 children. So, and I need a bed right there. But people, the partners we work with are very good. Sometimes I've even brought a case here. I'm like, who knows where I can get a bed because the shelter is full. I can't find a shelter in Eastern Iowa. And then somebody, did you already try the Catholic Worker House? So, yeah, we do. And we work also with the schools. And we also go there to talk about what we do. And thank you very much for allowing me this time to talk and outreach about our services and get information about other services out there for the clients. And the reception is always very, very good.
About the work and employment, you last, Ms. Scott?
What did you say?
I say about the works and employment. You said you do some training to provide employment readiness for.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you brought anybody into our Iowa Work Center to help them find work? Or do you know much about what we do that way?
I referred them, but before I've referred some people, but as we are doing that, because already I am aware of their strengths, and some before we can, the latest case is somebody, an engineer who's came in as well and was brought in and is being, he doesn't know he's being trafficked, but when he gets into our office, so before I could bring him to Iowa Works already, whatever we had, the other parts we'd taken had already worked, because first of all, immediately we had to get him a job in that would be like in 3 days, 2 to 3 days. As soon as his background check is done, he's able to get a job. And then he can now pursue his professional work. The person is an engineer, so right now he's ready to ship out in the army. And these are some of the successes that we celebrate with our survivors. They are able to thrive. Yeah, we have all your brochures because we give them and they get very excited.
Is your office still on East El Plaza?
Yes, it's still above DOT. That's usually the easiest one that we give. We say, just come above DOT and we're there. Or if you ask DOT, they will let you know that they are there. We're called Nisaa women, and even our survivors, because when you use the word advocate, in Africa, they think of a lawyer. So a lot of them will just say, oh, you're talking about the Nisaa women.